Yes, sir. And regarding the questions on prophecy, so we know, right? So the Lord gave the Old Testament prophets the gift of prophecy, right? All the prophets, prophecy is the first coming of Jesus. Right? Even Daniel and other Ezekiel, they prophesies the end times, right? End times before 2000 years, before 4000 years, and we are experiencing the end times one by one. Correct? So also Paul argues us to desire the gifts of prophecy, but these days we find it believers difficult to exercise the gift of prophecy. Rarely one or two. So how can believers get this gift of prophecy? And if God gives his gifts in Old Testament, definitely he will give in New Testament to all believers, right? So, but we couldn't able to see a connect, right? We couldn't able to see this gift more among the believers these days, right? So what is the lack? Where is the lack?
Okay, I think depending on the churches that we are a part of, Danny, especially if you're part of Pentecostal and charismatic churches, there is actually not a scarcity of prophets. I mean, there are several people that claim to have these prophetic giftings. So what you see as a lack, I see sometimes as an excess coming from the circles that I'm coming in. So there are prophets, when Paul is speaking in this particular context about desire the greater gifts, the desire the gift of prophecy, in chapter 14, we have to understand it contextually that he is comparing and contrasting two things. One is the gift of speaking in tongues, unintelligible words without interpretation, versus prophetic utterances, which are made in the same language and which are understandable. So, and in this light, Paul is saying that a prophetic gifting is something that is more edifying and effective and to be desired. Okay, vis-a-vis the ability to speak in tongues, or the gift of speaking in tongues without being accompanied by an interpretation. So that's one. So he's not in some way, categorically exalting, quote unquote, a prophet of God and saying he's, what, higher up in the hierarchy and all of the others come lower down. That would be creating elitism, which is actually what Paul is trying to fight in this church. Earlier, in the last episode, we saw that they were rich and that they were poor in this particular church, and the rich would come and gloat themselves and finish off all of their meals while the poor would be left starving. If there was one thing that Paul wanted to do in the Corinthian church, he wanted to do away with the elitism. Okay, he saw elitism in social status, elitism in wealth, and he also saw a very disturbing form of elitism, which is spiritual elitism, which was there in the Corinthian church. So if anybody in the modern church wants to have the gift of prophecy, he can ask God for it earnestly, and if God finds it appropriate that he should answer the prayer in affirmative, he would do that. And so I do see prophets from the circles that I've come from, so much so that I'm getting wary of the word prophets and prophecies. And so it's interesting that your observation is very different. But in this context, when he says desire the prophetic gift, he's contrasting it with the gift of speaking in tongues without interpretation, which he says is unedifying, and therefore that's how it has to be understood here.